You said, as I step into the role of prayer chaplain. Um, I, I was really struck by that, the way you said it. It's because I think sometimes I think probably the predominant experience of something like this would be, okay, I'm going to put the stole on. I'm on this Sunday. I'm going to step into the role. So a role is something we play. And I think that there's a bigger invitation there that if we lean into and give a gentle kiss to the idea that it's a role, that now I'm prayer chaplain. It actually restricts. I feel like rather than a role, you're honing in. You're coming in sync with the reality. So it's reality rather than role. Right? Does that make sense? Is that resonant for you? That when I'm very aware, still after years of doing what I do, right? When I'm on the platform, I'm very at the beginning of the service, I'm very attentive to who I'm being. Because if I show up in the role of minister, I've just contracted. So when I'm just coming into the vibrational reality of what I'm here to serve, what I am, and then who I am. I've talked about that often because they're very different. What is essential? Who is programmed? Who is the personality? What is the truth of our being? So if we try to show up and, okay, now I'm going to look like a prayer chaplain. Now I'm going to walk down the aisle. I'm going to hold the box. I'm going to get a certain look on my face, right? And then, oh, here comes somebody coming up to me. Now I've got to put on the role. It's a mask. And so just be aware of it. Do anybody else ever feel like you're playing a little bit of a role when you're doing it? And just be aware of that. And wait, I don't have to look a certain way or sound a certain way or be anything other than I am. Because then, and I think this is crucial to any form of service, though I know you well enough to know you wouldn't, if we're not completely equals, we can't serve. So if it's the role of prayer chaplain, praying with congregant, we need to do this, right? So we're going to be a prayer. We're going to vibrationally align so that your offering, if you will, is the energy that you're emitting. And I was a fairly good actor, but it's still playing a role. I rarely had more than a moment or two when I was so into it that I wasn't. You know what I mean? So while it may seem like a minor point, I think it's huge. That like if you have a desire to be a minister, it's so seductive to think now that you're in the role of minister. And it actually reduces your efficacy because now you're in a role.
I've already put myself.
You're already like what that's supposed to be or look like. So here, and I think it's directly related to the words, because I think a lot of people are freaked out by what words am I going to use? Well, what lines would the role of prayer chaplain say? As opposed to, it doesn't matter what you say. What matters is the feeling that you emit. And if it's not authentic and equal and essential, there's going to be a disconnect. Right? So thank you for sharing it in that way, because I really heard that, and I'm very aware of that. Occasionally something will happen in the room, like when I'm sitting there waiting, or something will happen, and then I'm like poker facing. Did that really just happen? You know, and then I'm trying to look, and then I go to myself, I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you going to put on pretense right now? Really? Just be with it.
Like with the music playing in the service.
Exactly. And you know what? That didn't distract me at all until everybody started reacting.
Right.
And then I'm like, you know what? We can keep going. Not a problem, right? So I think it's as you, particularly being new, and Bill, beautiful call. Just be aware if you flip into playing the role. The stoles are beautiful. It identifies you and lets the congregants know who are the chaplains, and they're very wonderful, but it's not a costume that is indicative of the role that you're going to play. So it's all about the vibrational reality, which is, so be your truest self, your most authentic self. And that will bring you into vibrational harmony. We talk a lot in here about holding sacred space or being the presence. That's different than playing a role. You're in a certain frequency, and the way that you relate then is I love the high watch. That's why we kind of kept that. They had done away with it, I guess, for a while, right? So I love the name high watch, because you're holding the high watch. That doesn't mean you're playing the role of floating above, right? It means that you're seeing through a certain lens. So a lot of times, and I think this gets in the way, like people will come up or people come to me and want prayer, but they're trying to sound really good. You know what I mean? Like they're playing a role. And I got to kind of sift through that and lead down into no, wait a minute. What's real in this moment? So thank you for that. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think that's so important to our work, is that you're not, you know, those scriptures that talk about putting on the robe of righteousness? Have anybody heard? So putting on the robe of righteousness? I always feel like that's like, no, take it off. Don't put it on. Take it off. And as soon as you take it off, you're real, and there's righteousness. Right? Righteousness, it's right. I don't even want to say right thinking. You're in the right brain. You're heart-centered. And I think as soon as we start trying to look a certain way or act a certain way or hang certain words, then we get ourselves tied in knots. There's less authenticity. So the words will come naturally out of your own harmonic. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Yes. So one of my favorite moments of the entire service is when the chaplains walk up. That's one of my favorite times. And when most of you, I make a connection with the person on this side. I love that moment because I've just watched and I am completely like taking in all of it, but I am zoomed on that prayer box. I am holding that prayer box in. And I don't miss the beauty of you all walking down that aisle. That's the most important thing that happened. The prayer chaplains are the most important people in the service in terms of holding the space for this. That is yours is, if there were a role to be played, you're the stars. You really are. That's why it's so important to me, and I've been a real stickler. Is this on camera? I've been a real ass. And I don't apologize about wanting y'all in those seats right after praying. You know how I am about it. And you know what? I'm done apologizing for thinking that that's the most important thing that happens. I want people to walk in and go, you know?
I've had many people say to me that when they walk in the service, they feel the energy before they even come in the door, that expression, and then knowing what, because sometimes they say, well, what are you doing up, back there and sitting in there? What are you, doing a whole piece in there? They get that, even though we don't tell them, they get it, they feel it.
And it's the feeling.
Yeah.
It's the feeling of walking into an aura. That's really what it is. And so, I remember a couple years ago, people said, I hadn't been there for such a long time, and we got out of our car and we were like, what's going on? This does not feel like Unity of the Palm Beaches. But they were in the parking lot. And I believe that's simple physics. If you're really like holding that space, then people might be all busy and buzzy, but at some level they're going to feel that. That's why I think, all unities have their own personality. There are some consistencies, but they reflect a lot about the leader. But they also reflect, I think, the depth of the prayer consciousness. And the ones that don't have chaplain programs, there's something lacking. And the ones that have really strong, dedicated prayer chaplain programs, that's the foundation. So I said this many times, but remember that Unity did not begin as a church. People met in a home to pray together. That was how it started. It was all about prayer. And that's never, you go to Unity Village and you see that wondrous tower and like there's unity. That's unity. So yours, if sometimes, and I'm glad because I really at this point in my life, and I'm really happy to annoy people. And I'm good at it, aren't I? Because I want you to own that you're the ones that really get to display what we're all about, to be what we're all about, to have people walk in the back door and the first thing they see are prayer chaplains holding space. That to me, there it is. Everything else is kind of incidental. And I'm holding the space that we're going to grow and grow and grow and grow into that, so that World Day of Prayer is going to be the biggest day that we have here. I don't care that 30 people come. It's just because we don't understand. We make it a role. So, thank you. Thank you. Thank you.